this to Ballygunner because they won it last in 2001, 17 years ago, and that was their first time to win it, and they've lost 4 finals since. So they've been beaten by Na Piarsaigh in 2015 by 7 points, in 2017 by 8 points, even though that was very close with 10 minutes to go, and then they came back this year. Interestingly, and this is a theory my father has on teams, their name was on it this year. They were just going to win it this year. You know, that kind of a theory people have. And they were 4 points down against Middleton after they won the county final, played the Cork losers. Middleton were 4 points down, had to pull that out of the bag. Then we all know what happened against Ballyea. They were 3 points down. It was the last puck of the game. The ball went in. They didn't score from the long ball in. Usually the referee will just blow this up. Yeah. So this was very, very lucky that the ball broke out to the side and then it was lobbed in with a cross in, and we know Philip O'Mahony stuck it into the back of the net. So they scraped into the final after extra time. Na Piarsaigh absolutely flying their way through it, hammered the Tipperary champions in the semi-final, hammered their way through through Limerick. Strong favourites going into the final yesterday. Ballygunner beat them by 6 points. Just a dominating display. And this is after Na Piarsaigh getting an early goal by Kevin Downs, which was a brilliant goal. Their fullback Barry Coughlin getting on an immediate yellow for pulling across him. And it's like, this is going to be a cakewalk for Na Piarsaigh. No, it wasn't, because Ballygunner's name was written on it. My father was right.
Does he mean that they're lucky, or that
it means it's just written in the stars? They just have it. They're just going to win it this year. They just have it. I mean, and you'll hear a lot of theories saying it's a great way to go into a final. And like this, all these kind of cliches came true because it was. And sometimes you're just playing too well going into a final. You're not set up for it. You're not ready for that battle that Ballygunner were well ready for.
There's a lot of teams, like one of the ones that springs to mind for me, thankfully I'm bringing it back to football, but it's Donegal 2012, and they just look ready, and everything they have is right, and they've got something a bit different, and they keep coming at the right time. It just maybe that's the best way I can see that their name is on it.
That's a bit different now because they
forced it on
They got through with good performances all year. I mean, Ballygunner kind of scraped their way to get there.
Yeah.
So their name was written on it. They needed an extra power to get them. They needed their name to be on it, or else they wouldn't have won it. But there was an interesting one in the first half because it was David Dempsey won a good ball, and it looked like a point for me from normal play, and then the replay showed that it was a wide, and the umpire got the decision right, called it a wide in normal play. Then the referee, David Dempsey, went crazy. The referee went over to the linesman. The linesman told him something. The referee ran into the umpire and told the umpire to overrule it, and they gave it as a point. It wasn't a point. It wasn't. They showed replays of it, and the ball disappeared behind the post. Obviously indicate that it had gone wide. And the most interesting thing about this is that there's Hawkeye in Thurles, only it wasn't turned on. I think it's very disappointing for a senior club match like that.
And it's another sort of kick in the teeth for club players, isn't it? It's we're not turning Hawkeye on for the club. We'll keep it on for the real game, but here's is a bloody provincial final, and we haven't been bothered to turn it on. And in the first half, a point like that can change everything.
It does not. It definitely doesn't paint the picture that the GAA is interested in the elite level and nothing else. Because this is a provincial final. Because Stephen O'Keefe, he was interviewed afterwards, and he says you work so hard and you get your heart broken. Interesting that he said about a broken heart twice. He continues on, you come back again and you get so close and you get your heart broken again. Heartbroken. This is the description of it. So finally going up those steps is the proudest moment I've ever had on a hurling pitch. And I completely agree with believe Stephen, because Stephen at intercounty level would have won a national league, and let's be honest, a provincial club title trumps the national league any day of the week. So it is his proudest moment ever. But you'd like to have seen Hawkeye. The optics aren't great when the grassroots are complaining about club players being overlooked. Bloody put Hawkeye on there.
Yeah, and it's, again, as I said, it's just another little level of just you're not as important as county players. We're going to leave it up to an umpire. You'd like to see Hawkeye using every single hurling game because the ball moves that fast and it's that small. Yeah. But obviously when it is available, use it, and when it's a provincial final, use it.
Yeah, exactly. So the Na Piarsaigh manager said it's been a long year for Na Piarsaigh and a long year for our lads with Limerick. So maybe it was a step too far. We'll be back. And that's true. This club were beaten after a replay in last year's All-Ireland final against Coola. Went to O'Moore Park for the replay. Then Limerick went into a full season, won the All-Ireland. Then to continue on and there's about 5 or 6 of them on the squad. There might be only one starter. Then they win the All-Ireland and they're back into county final, and then they're back into Munster Club. Now, they'd never lost a Munster Club match. They'd won 4 county titles and 4 Munsters. So they had won 12 games in a row in the Munster Club, and this was their 13th, and they got caught.
They let them down.
So really, when you think about it, like, I mean, maybe it was a step too far, and Ballygunner's name was written on it.
Yeah,
so,
they didn't realise how pointless this whole thing was.
Right, so, like, I mean, that was good, but that wasn't even the game of the day in hurling, because the game of the day in hurling was Ballyboden versus Coolderry. This was in Parnell Park. So nearly 100 minutes between normal time, injury time, which was contentious, and we're going to talk to Brian Carroll in part 3 about this, because Brian Carroll wins performance of the weekend. I'm not even going to keep it in suspense, because if he's in part 3, it kind of gives the game away anyway. So, like, I mean, between the extra time, there was 6 minutes of injury time at the end of normal time. Now, this is contentious in that the Coolderry players and manager saying they were told 3. There was no extra time held up on a board or announced in Parnell Park. Isn't that weird? It almost gave the referee license to just play on an extra 3 and get this drawn up, because Coolderry, Brian Carroll drew it up in normal time with a goal, and then they followed that up with a point to go ahead for the first time, pretty sure in the whole game, because they had such a disastrous start. They went 2-1 to no score down after 3 minutes. So the referee told them 3 minutes left. They were a point up. The 3 minutes had elapsed, and then the referee continued on 3 more minutes. Ballyboden got an equaliser. So it went to 2 minutes of extra time then 2 minutes of 5 minutes. So it was almost 100 minutes, 63 scores, 10 goals, 4 sending offs. My God. And Brian Carroll finished with 216.
And lost.
And Colm Basquel finished with 3-3 from play.
Colm Basquel?
Yeah.
Jesus. Like, there's another, like, you know, we talk about all these players from Dublin who aren't playing with the hurlers. Like, oh my God. I would love to see a team of Dublin players who aren't playing.
Yeah,
should be in the hurling team. No,
definitely, because Basquel got 3-3 from play. He also blocked down. We'll talk about him performance of the weekend. He also blocked down a goalkeeper's clearance for a Conal Keeney goal. So that's 4-3 he's directly responsible for, and he was fouled for all 3 of Paul Ryan's frees in the second period of injury time, which actually won by 3. So, like, I mean, that's just sensational. So yeah, so we're going to talk to Brian Carroll in part 3 to make some sort of sense of that game. The game that we were both watching on television, while I was watching Ballygunner, you were watching the highlights of that, but Gweedore went through against Crossmaglen, and well, it was a good entertaining game. Like, I mean, it was always going to be Gweedore after the 3 goals. There wasn't really much suspense in it. You were half hoping Crossmaglen got the 4 at the end of the first half to kind of bring it back to 5, thinking maybe there might be a second half in this, but Gweedore were completely in control against Crossmaglen, and that was it. And, like, I mean, they looked a different team from the county final. They looked like a much more attractive team. That's obviously because of the opposition they were facing, who came to play football, not like Glenties like to play. Like, I mean, how can you play against them only at their own game? So it was a really good team, and Gweedore a very good footballing team, and tore Crossmaglen apart.
Yeah.
Dara O'Boyle, I get in trouble for not saying that in Irish. Like, I mean, he just tore through them. He looked like he was playing wing forward or just throwing it over the top, and he's a full ocean of space.
Yeah.
Like, I was tweeting about this. It's very, very rare in modern football. When do you see that? When do you see you getting the ball over the top and you have a clear running goal from about the 45? It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's actually, it just is not seen, and it happened 3 times with this fella.
It's not nice, is it, Willie? I was looking.
Not nice. So, like, I mean, most teams leave their centre back covering that bloody area. Like, I mean, that's happening since as long as I've played football, that a centre back would not allow it. It might let it happen once, and he'd be hopped off, and then do not let that happen again.
Yeah, like. As good as Gweedore was, I was looking at that thinking, Jesus, come on, lads. Like, Crossmaglen were just leaving oceans of space, and every time one player was beaten, which was nearly all the time, then everything opened up for Gweedore. Like, and every single player was ready to take on a man as soon as he got the ball. This is from corner back. They always try to beat the man first, and then you just had these streams of bodies going forward. The angles of running was unreal.
Yeah.
Like, that first goal that O'Wheel got, it just sort of, the ball was going to the left, and he's done that little rugby sort of angle run in towards, and then, as you said, 45 metres of running the whole way in.
And they're so slick with the hand passing, they can actually confuse you. You know, that kind of. I thought the Crossmaglen goalkeeper was terrible for the second goal. Like, the first goal was just such a beautiful, beautiful finish, and it's difficult even to explain how difficult it is to pinpoint that on the run after about a 30-metre run in the conditions that there are. Like, so that's just a fantastic finish. The second one, the goalkeeper just came out and turned his arse to it. Like, I mean, and then he let in the penalty. Like, it wasn't a good strike for the penalty, but in fairness to Dara, the ground was in an awful state, and he was glad. I'd say he was glad just to get a good strike on it, and it went in. But it was poor from the goalkeeper again, and we know Paul Harty's been goalkeeper for Crossmaglen for so long. He was a little small enough little fella, but definitely came out and turned his arse to the second one. Made no attempt to try and. Some goalies might take him out of it completely there.
Yeah, and the penalty, I thought it was even worse. Like, you know, the ball goes under keeper sometimes, and that's not good, but he wasn't even down.
No.
Like, he was on his way down, and the ball was going past him around the middle of the net. It just didn't look great. Darragh O'Boyle, who scored 3, you mentioned those 4 points Crossmaglen got at the end of the half, but he got that block, which could have brought the game to 2. It was like Crossmaglen were in for goal, and he had this diving block where Neil McGee was just sort of behind him and slapping him on the arse, sort of, thank Christ you were there sort of thing. But that could have changed everything as well. 2 points in.
That was Roy of the Rover stuff. The Crossmaglen finished with 13 players for the second game in a row. Now Johnny Hanratty got 2 yellows, and Johnny makes a habit maybe of getting sent off, or do I have that right? It seems to me, but like, I mean, he was on a yellow, and you have to know you can't slap that high at a fellow anymore, because they're like, 10 years ago that player would have continued on with his run. Now they're taking that contact that's anyway high, and they're falling backwards and making it look, and we've talked about this in the podcast before, so it was a stupid reckless challenge from him which caused no damage to the Gweedore player, and he overacted it. But you have to almost accept the fact that if you're going high on a fella running past you now, and you go in any way, he's just going to take it as accentuated like a clothesline, and you're going to go off. So he got another yellow, and the Ryan O'Neill he got a straight red. It was a terrible challenge. He looked like a really good player actually, Ryan O'Neill. He's going to be an intercounty superstar. He's a lovely classy player, but that was not a classy act. It was a terrible challenge late on.
Yeah, no, and like when he was striking it all day, just coming off his laces outside the boot, it was just
he's a lovely technique,
nice kicker. But Hanratty, like, he was sort of annoying me a bit in the first half, like, because he was trying these pinging passes.
He loves a kick pass,
and I know he's good at them, but like,
but that's their style of play. So
I know, but he was kicking it down the throat a lot of a Gweedore man, and like,
he gave a few good ones in too, though. In fairness,
he did, like, and he does that usually, but it was just, come on, have a bit more patience. Like, they didn't seem to have any patience sometimes when they were 40 yards out, and they had to go back. The next guy just sort of lumped it in to see what would happen. Like, you know, they're too almost to a fault. They're too classical, and like the first goal came from Johnny Hanratty kicking the ball straight down the sweeper's throat, and then Gweedore just overran them, and then before you know it, it's O'Boyle in on goal, and Hanratty's watching this whole thing unfold, like, after just kicking it away. I don't know. Yeah,
you don't like that old kick pass, really, Conán, do you? Let's be honest. So the attendance was disappointing. So, like, I mean, we talked this up last Thursday, and this kind of confuses me, and about what a great game, 4 footballing teams, and they ended up being 2 good games. There was 7,794 there, so 7,800. So, like, I mean, I'm wondering, like, we talk about how great this club season is. That's not evidence that it's capturing the imagination of the neutral. Now, I don't think there's any problem. Crossmaglen's just a small place. Gweedore's a small place. Coolderry has a big Protestant population, so the actual GAA community there would be relatively small as well. And Scottstown's a small place. So, like, I mean, all these small towns and villages might add up to in around 7, like, because let's be honest, Portlaoise might bring 2,000 to a match, and that's a big town, do you know? So, like, I mean, we're not comparing this potentially with any intercounty, but you would have hoped for maybe a few more from Tyrone rocking up and get that up over 10,000, 12,000 for a double header like that, wouldn't you? Or am I being a bit too harsh?
Yeah, like, I did think there would be a lot more sort of neutral interest in it. Like, I think that's those figures sort of mark what you're talking about. Those 4 clubs are small enough areas, so that's a grand
2, 4, 6, 8. I wouldn't see too much wrong with.
Yeah.
But you're not factoring many neutrals into that crowd.
No, and I thought there would be a bit more interest. Maybe it's a cold November day. It's Sunday. It doesn't suit their Sunday roast time or Sunday dinner time, whatever time you have it at. But maybe they wanted to watch the hurling. I don't know, but. Yeah, it's disappointing.
4 northern football teams wanted to watch the hurling. Forget about that theory anyway. So that's how I know, because we talk a lot, and maybe you see, like, I mean, just because we're so into this provincial club and, you know, county final time and then provincial club time, I love it. It's genuinely my favourite time of the year, and maybe that's because I played it and I'm just really, really into it. I don't know, because that is not backing up that the general public are on the same wavelength as me and you here as well.
Yeah, like, is it too far? Like, a club, like, there's no club from Tyrone playing in that game, and this game is in Tyrone. Is it too far to expect a neutral to go to Care? Like, if, say, if it was in Donegal, you get a lot of Donegal people going to watch Gweedore.
Yeah.
Same with Dairies, same with Monaghan, whatever. But
maybe. So you're really only trying to get neutrals from Tyrone then, really, to go to that. It might be a bit far for a neutral, not from each club, to actually go and travel. You're right, yeah. I'd like to see the TG Cahir viewing figures. That would be more of an indication in what the public interest in it is. But Rory Beggan was back at it again. So the early one was that you called Coolderry in this, and you were nearly right. I think they led most of the way straight through. In Scottstown, it was described as a crossfield pass. Donald Morgan was caught with a closed fist tackle by Kieran McGoldrick. Free into Scottstown, 45 metres out, up steps Rory Beggan. So you might as well just headed for the exit gates at that stage, because there was only one thing going to happen there.
Yeah, it was disappointed for Coleraine. I think Niall Hawley going off after about 40 minutes.
He's the big midfielder, is he?
Yeah,
he played with Derry for a little while.
Played with Derry for a good while. Like, he's very athletic. You know, he sort of sums up Coleraine, and they need him in that engine room because he's not only a great fetcher, but he gets up and down the pitch so well defensively and in attack. So he was a big loss. Richard Carey came on. He's a good player, but probably a bit older now. Like, so I don't know. It seemed like a massive blow for him at the time. And yeah, even like Kieran McGoldrick's tackle, it was sort of like, come on, you don't need to be giving this away, like, you know, especially when Rory Beggan's there. So
was it a free?
Yeah, I thought it was, like, yeah,
okay.
But it was just a bit.
Where were you watching that, on Derry TV or something? Did I see that? Yeah.
But I felt really bad for them, but like that's the thing with Scottstown, when you have somebody like Rory Beggan, they use their big players. Same with Monaghan, they use their big players, they get the big result, and they had the big moment at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be a great final now with Scottstown and with Gweedore. So two teams that have a good sprinkle of intercounty players who have built up a big rivalry at intercounty level. So I'm surprised there hasn't been that many Monaghan versus Donegal Ulster club matches. So this will be a good one with a bit of spice. That's obviously in 2 weeks' time. We've Kevin Cassidy coming up in part 2 as well, so we're going to talk to him about that. Ballyhale Shamrocks beat Naveena 6-21. Incredible scoring away from home from Ballyhale Shamrocks to 4-11. So Naveena went 2 goals up early doors. Cahill Dunbar was on fire. So he got his first goal was absolutely sensational. It was like a drop hit. So he threw it out of his hand, hit the ground, and as it came back up, bang into the back of the net, and then he scored another one. So then it was Ballyhale Shamrocks came back. Colin Fennelly got 4-4. Performance of the weekend. This is the most competitive performance of the weekend we've ever had. Colin Fennelly got 4-4.
And you've already decided it.
And this is and I've already decided it. So this is Colin Fennelly and TJ Reid got 6. So they were in Oz last week. So absolutely no ill effects of going to Oz. So, that was a big win for Ballyhale Shamrock. So they played Ballyboden in the final of that. So that's fantastic. As I mentioned, St. Thomas's won in Galway. They play Cushendall now, so there'll be strong favourites to beat them. So, imagine that. No disrespect to Cushendall now, because I think they are a little bit depleted with some injuries. And, it has happened before that they've won their All-Ireland semi-final, the Antrim champions. But St. Thomas's will be strong favourites. I think this is grossly unfair. Loads of Galway clubs have won the All-Ireland club, and it's because they just have a free pass to it. If the Galway inter-county team is in Leinster, why are the club champions? Why do you win a Galway county title and suddenly you land in an All-Ireland final? It's madness.
Yeah, it is. It's not fair. But even Cushendall, they're automatically in an Ulster final. So again, the path is skewed. Because the Antrim champions go straight into that decider, and it's not fair just because of where you're from. Look at Ballyboden, who've played 3 bouts of extra time already in 2 games. Yeah. Their path, when they get to an All-Ireland semi-final, if they do, they're going to really have earned it. And the like of St. Thomas has just come through Galway.
But Ballyboden, if they're lucky enough to win the Leinster final against Ballyhale Shamrock, right?
Yeah.
Then they have to go and play Ballygunner in an All-Ireland semi-final. All the while St. Thomas's have only won the Galway County Championship and beaten the Antrim champions. Again, I don't want to disrespect the Antrim champions because they have traditionally done well. But that's just not fair. That's like the All-Ireland Championship used to be years ago. If Galway are in the Leinster Championship, why aren't the Galway club champions in the Leinster club? It's just bizarre.
No idea. And I remember wondering why the hell's Galway's Championship still going on, but obviously they're timing it for this.
They're timing it.
They had it right for their own sake. But Yeah, it's really not fair. And again, it comes back to the provincial system. Like, it always skews everything.
Yeah, yeah. So anyways, we'll leave that there, because Banagher, Derry Club, Derry Intermediate, this is the Ulster Intermediate, and do you know what, there's some great stories going on in these intermediate championships, because so they drew with Mullahoran, 116 Mullahoran, Banagher 19 points. Then they went to extra time and they couldn't be separated, and they ended up going to a free kick competition. So it's the first time that historic free kick shootout. So it settled that Mullahoran won 5-3. So Mullahoran manager is Shawnee Smith. So he says it's not a great way to finish a game, but we're happy. So that's after winning it. So we know what's said after a big World Cup match is decided on penalties. It's a terrible way to lose a game, but sure, that's it. It had to be finished on the day for the provincial final, and I don't blame them for that. This is just a new way of finishing a game, and if it's absolutely, the report I read, electrifying drama, how can that be a bad thing? How can electrifying drama be a bad thing?
Well,
now, you're not going to agree, because your hero Enda Muldoon is the Banagher manager. And he's not happy with it, so he says, I think it's wrong. I think it's the wrong way to do it. There'd be nothing wrong with next Saturday, but they've made the rules, and unfortunately we're on the wrong end of it. So Enda Muldoon, almost up there with Diarmuid Connolly as your all-time hero. He's ahead of
Diarmuid Connolly would be lucky to be in the same stratosphere as Enda Muldoon. And I don't say that lightly, Willie, but yeah, I tell you why it's I get what you're saying about it's a good way to end the game, and you can't have replays for 7 weeks anymore, but it's probably again just the imbalance between, say, county and club, and some club games go to a replay, and so all the county games go to a replay, but this
they don't all know. They ended that last year. Only provincial finals and All-Ireland finals go to a replay. Yeah,
but again, they have extra time. It just had 2 extra times in fairness, but why is this game suddenly going to the shootout? Where all our teams have had replays, and it's just, if you're from Banagher now, if you're Enda Muldoon, you're put out in a free kick competition, having trained since, say, January, and I don't know, it sort of irks with you, the fact that it's that sort of imbalance across the board.
See, I don't think there is imbalance. That's the way it's supposed to be decided, and that's it. They weren't good enough to win it after the normal time and extra time, and then they went to it, and then they weren't good enough to kick. And you were actually saying that they weren't 40. They were way in from the 45.
33 metres. Yeah,
it was 33.
So that rule must have got changed. I was trying to get it clarified today, and nobody was able to officially confirm, but they were told it was from the 33s, so just the age of the D, which makes a lot more sense.
But straight in front.
Yeah.
Jeez, how would you miss that?
After 90 minutes of football.
No, well, that's the argument for the 45, because 45 is a decent distance with when your legs are dead.
Yeah.
But jeez, you should be hitting it from the top of the D though.
Yeah, but once you get down
straight in front of the goals.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Once you get down to 4 and
well,
5.
Mullahoran didn't miss any anyways, because they got 5-3. Yeah. So it was the Banagher lads. Banagher lads, obviously, they might have only missed one, and that was enough, because Mullahoran might have gone first. So when they went 5-3, Banagher had one left. So there are not many lads missing there. So God help the poor chap.
I know. But this is what we were saying, yeah. But when we were talking about it last year, I think it was, they have to have that element where it should be easy to score, but then it's down to nerves. And penalties, you should always score a penalty.
Well, that's true, yeah. But then, in that case, then I'd like it from a little bit of an angle.
Yeah.
I don't know, just that, straight in front of the goals, really. You should be just sticking that up there and letting it carry over, you shouldn't
simple as that, really.
It's from an angle that you might have to start curling them. Then you should get it, but it's a little more. Technically, it's more difficult when you have to put a bit of spin on it, right? So you can just kick it straight over from in front of the goals. But then again, maybe some of them try to send it out and bring it back in, and it doesn't come back in, whatever.
And I agree. I'm happy with this free taking competition after extra time, as long. I just think it has to be across the board.
As long as it's not Enda Muldoon's team that loses. That's basically how we'll end it for you, right?
Enda Muldoon rule.
So Wishy Fogarty passed away. Terrible news. Wishy Fogarty's unbelievably well regarded. One of those fellas in the GAA, they're few and far between, who nobody has a bad word to say about him. I've met him a few times, and he's a lovely man. And there's been a real outpouring of emotion and tributes and everything. Kieran Donaghy probably summed it up. He said, so sad to hear the passing of Wishy Fogarty this morning. Brought hairs up in the neck when he was in full flow on Radio Kerry, and that's what he did. The passion. And his terrace talk was absolutely outstanding, and it's one of those brilliant examples, along with Highland Radio, of local radio being the go-to sports shows in a county rather than the national radio, and I think that's a brilliant thing. You know, we don't really have it necessarily. In Laois, you'd have your stalwarts, but this was just his show. Terrace Talk was just the market leader in Kerry, and that was it. And I know it's the same in Highland Radio. So he says, a true gentleman. Love calling into him for a chat. Also, he had a great love for basketball. May he rest in peace. So that's it. He kind of almost like a Micheál Murray kind of a brilliant way, brilliant flow about him when he's talking about Kerry football. Came
so easy to him. Kieran Dunhee actually had that great line. Was it last year you were interviewing him? I think when he decided to stay on, but he talked about this, an old sort of 80-year-olds at their home listening to Radio Kerry and hearing the Dublin v Kerry game, and that's sort of what makes him come back, because there's somebody tuning into Radio Kerry. But it's the fact that Radio Kerry was so quintessential to Kerry life, and Wishy Fogarty was the best man at it. Yeah, exactly. And condolences to all the Fogarty family. I just want to leave you on another one here, Conán, because we know Joe Brolly likes making things up, right? So slightly. Well, he likes to embellish the truth. Yeah. Well, how do we say it? Because we can't call him a liar, because he's a barrister and we could get in trouble. He's got poetic license.
He's poetic license. So Joe Brolly tweeted. Joe Brolly was in Omagh because he loves Crossmaglen. We know that. So
life's too short. Remember?
Yeah, life's too short. Now he would have loved those Henry passes that you didn't like. But the announcer, this was a classic. This is pure GAA. So the announcer at Omagh, this is Joe Brolly tweeting this. So the announcer at Omagh just said, "Would 2-year-old Shay Carey please make his way to the back?" No, let me finish it. "Would 2-year-old Shay Carey please make his way to the back of the stand?" 2-year-old Shay Carey.
Your car is parked illegally.
Or could 2-year-old Shay Carey please phone call your parents and let them know you're okay? So I'm thinking of Mannix running around lost and an announcer telling the little chap to go back to the back of the stand. Anyways, that's not even half the joke. So the stadium announcer replied back to Joe. So Kieran McDade is the stadium announcer, and he took exception to this and seemed to miss the point completely, because he replied to Joe Brolly and said, "You omitted." Now, it wouldn't be like Joe to admit something but in this case it made no difference. "You omitted to finish that sentence, Joe, where I said he will be collected by his parents." so
it's all right then.
So it's okay. So the 2-year-old is supposed to know how to make his way. That's brilliant. So Kieran McDade, really, you're completely missing the point. The 2-year-old would not have understood you, Kieran. So that's it. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk to Kevin Cassidy. All right, so Gweedore beat Crossmaglen yesterday in Omagh to reach an Ulster club final, and Kevin Cassidy joins us on the line now. How's it going, Kevin?
Good, Willie. Not too bad. Not too bad.
They say goals win games.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I suppose the 3 we got in the first half were crucial yesterday, because obviously Crossmaglen, and going into the game, you're supposed to are worried about them. You have to kind of take your chances when they come, and listen, our young lads took them yesterday, and especially Dara Boyle. So just delighted with the one in general,
Yeah, and is he a weapon that you use a lot? Obviously, I saw the Donegal County final, and you couldn't read too much into that because it was a real kind of arm wrestle defensive game. But is his kind of runs from deep something that you use very often?
Yeah, well, them lads, they're all kind of powerful runners. That's just their natural game. You have the likes of Michael Carroll, Oran McNeilis, Nisha Whale, Niall Friel, Cian Mulligan. So we're lucky that we have that. But as you say, it was kind of hard to read into any kind of game, because I think every game's different. The county finals, we had to set up differently, and yesterday there was a wee bit more space for us. So it just depends what's in front of us, really.
Yeah, so that's it. So I was looking at you in the county final, and while you did well, you got 2 points. You weren't getting on the ball very much. Yesterday was a completely different story for a full forward. You got on plenty of ball. You got 1-2 in the second half. So I presume it's more the game plan, what we saw from Gweedore in the second half, of how to use you.
That's it, and I think for the likes of myself and young Eamon Colm, who's in beside me, sometimes it can be frustrating, because obviously you want to get involved in the game, but we have to just be disciplined and give our lads an outlet, although we mightn't be as used as often as we want ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's just about the team and creating as much space as we can in there. And, some days it works for you and some days it doesn't.
Is that the hardest thing for you to get used to playing in there? Because you're an all-action wing back and midfielder. Now you're in there living off scraps some of the time. You must be pulling your hair out in there.
maybe. I suppose early on in the year, you're naturally, if the ball's not coming, you go seeking it. But listen, our coach Michael Boyle and our management Mervyn, they've sat down and said this is the role. So I've kind of grew into it. And to be honest, I'm enjoying it because that when you are in action, it's just going to be for 30-40 seconds, so you save up your energy and get ready to go for that,
Well, that was the thing, because I saw you in the game yesterday, like you went for an early score and you missed one, and then it was almost like you were kind of coaching your way back into the game. You're probably saying, I'll lay off a few here now before I try another one or whatever, and you laid off the next 4 or 5, and then in the second half when it opened up, like your first point in the second half was a traditional full forwards point where you win the ball out in front, turn around and clip it over the bar, so I'm sure I've made the transition from wing back to full forward. I know probably what you're going through up there, but like this is stuff you're working out probably yourself the whole year.
Yeah, definitely it is, and you play it as you see it. But I think you'll know what I'm talking about, Willie. If you played in the half-back line or around in the midfield, you're used to marking fellas, so you know what runs work and where defenders don't want to be dragged. And I think you can't be drawn all that kind of experience. And listen, what I am up there is just a kind of another option really, or like our younger lads and our lads out there in the middle of the field. That's where we're powerful, and at the end of the day, if we can get anything at all up there, it's a bonus for us,
Yeah. You mentioned all these young fellas. I saw you quoted as saying that, or you did that very good piece at the weekend with Declan Bogue in the Examiner, and you were saying 99% of them have played inter-county at some stage, underage. And there's 10 of the team won an Ulster under-21 championship earlier on in the year. So add in the two McGees and yourself, and you've got a great mix there.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose we're waiting for these lads to come this last number of years because we've watched them, under 16, 9 or 21s, and last year they won the Ulster 21, so they've just came at the right time, and this year kind of worked out well because, Donegal were knocked out a wee bit earlier, so, all in all, between 21s and senior, we had 9 lads involved with county this year, so it was great to get those lads back early into our setup, although we all want to see our county do well, but it's great when our club players get back to our club,
Yeah, it is. And I saw you've been kind of quoted as the type of football that you like to play. The county final was a very defensive game, but is club football in Donegal turning around a little bit? I know the way you played against Crossmaglen is a good advertisement for Donegal club football, but it hasn't had the best reputation in the last, probably since McGuinness took over Donegal. Yeah,
definitely. I think that's naturally the way it goes. If a team wins, everybody tries to copy the system, but it doesn't work for everybody, Willie, and it makes for poor viewing. And I think we pride ourselves here in Donegal, and not in Donegal, but in Gweedore, we want to play open football as much as we can. And I think that slowly but surely Donegal football is turning back to being more offensive. And teams, you look at the likes of Kilcar and Glenties and Unans, they all like to play ball. So it's good to see that coming round again.
Right, okay. Well, it didn't look like Glenties wanted to play that much ball in the county final now.
Well, I suppose they were kind of apprehensive of what we were bringing to the table, and I suppose I spoke to a few of them afterwards, and I think that's one regret that they had, that they didn't, because they have some top class forwards and they didn't use them. So you have to go away and look at these things, and instead of trying to copy other teams, I think you should just have a real go. And if we went up to Crossmaglen yesterday, and we could have sat and parked the bus and hope for the best, but what we said all week was we want to give it a good account of ourselves. If we're beaten, then fair enough, we're beaten, but we want to try anyway.
Yeah, no, so you definitely did that. There's no doubt about that. So you retired 2 years ago. You were always in the wars anyway. So you were beaten by Glenties by 12 points in the championship, and you, that was just an impulsive decision, Kevin, was it? Surely you knew these young fellas were on the way up and you might live to regret it.
I'll tell you what, that I had a part to play in it, because I knew these guys were on the way up, but I knew also that we were around for a long time when we underachieved. I thought maybe that at the time the best thing to do was a couple of the older lads like myself to move on and leave the space for these young lads to come through. And that was my thinking when it did happen. But obviously to come back 2 years ago was massive, and at the start it was just really, I spoke to the manager, and it was just really maybe coming off the bench if I could and help them. But the heart of last year's semi-final, I just kind of said, listen, I'll give it everything I have and see what kind of shape I can get into,
Right, so it must be obviously it's the right decision now. You're in an Ulster final. There's no doubt about it. And why did you think some of the older fellas? You thought maybe that ye banging the drum, the same voices talking in the dressing room, that some of these younger lads needed to stand up?
I thought that exactly just the same voices, the same things. I think maybe I thought to myself that these young lads might come into that kind of atmosphere. It mightn't be the right place for them because, listen, we didn't do what we could have done. We let ourselves down. We didn't train as hard as we could have. We went our own direction, and that's something that we regret. But thankfully, as a chance, we got a chance to rectify this year.
Yeah, I saw in that piece with Declan Bogue you were talking about with your relationship with Eamon McGee, and would that kind of relationship, kind of not talking and you're such big personalities, do you think that would have had an effect on the younger fellas in the squad?
I think it probably did, to be honest. They would have known that how close myself and Eamon were, and then obviously, we kind of have differences of opinion, and I think that's something about me, Willie. If I think I'm having a negative effect on someone, I'd rather take myself out of it, the situation,
Yeah.
But everything, thankfully, everything worked out, and I said in that piece, I think the biggest thing I'll take away from this year is, making up with my club mates, because just at the end of the day, that's your friends, that's who you grew up with, and it's fantastic. It worked out this year.
Yeah, it is. And so how did things start going sour with Eamon then? Was it after, obviously you left the Donegal squad and he stayed on it, and was that the start of it, or was there things said in behind the scenes at club football that kicked it off?
Actually, no, it was just kind of different. To be honest, there was no major row between myself and Eamon.
You drifted.
Yeah, that's it. Just drifted. That's it, exactly. And it would have been sad to leave it that way. And 2 years ago when I came back, we kind of buried the hatchet. We just put the shoulder to the wheel, the two of us, for the club, and we've shared some fantastic memories this year, and it's something that I'll always cherish.
So did you clear the air, or did you just start talking to each other again?
I think honestly, what happened really was just it was cleared through hard work and on the training pitch together. Nobody actually sat down and said anything to each other. And I've always had massive time for the two lads, and I think the feeling is mutual. It's just sometimes ourselves personalities and tempers and everything can flare, but to be honest, it's just fantastic for our club and for everything that we're back where we are now at the top table. It
definitely does. So, I remember when Eamon was having some arguments with McGuinness when he was left the betting slip on the bookies floor and he was thrown off the panel, and McGuinness was talking to Eamon, and Neil was there. Neil wasn't getting involved. So does Neil just stay out of these rows Eamon gets into? He doesn't. You and Neil were okay.
Neil just stays quiet. Believe me, if Emily starts an Eamon on the pitch, Neil will be the first man in.
No, that's true. Come here, another thing I thought was interesting in the piece was, and I believe you when you say that you're not bothered about missing out on the All-Ireland, and I believe you now, because I suppose when you look back on something 5 years ago, that's all done, so do you have an All-Ireland or do you not? Who really cares at this stage maybe now? So I kind of believe you when you say that, but living through it at the time, Kevin, that must have been really difficult.
As I explained, Willie, the most difficult part probably was the game against, I think it was Cork, and I was in America, because I knew then that Mayo weren't going to stop them. Those couple of hours were probably the toughest, because I was on my own. The family had gone home, and I was in a flat in Boston on my own, and waiting to go out to play a final. And you're just thinking of these things, and you're saying, "Well, that's it now. It's done and dusted." But listen, you know me personally. Well, just the way I just move on, and that's what I did. I came back here to Ireland, and I didn't go up to the game. I watched it at home, and to be honest, it didn't hurt me a bit the day of the game. To be honest, because it was done and dusted.
Right, but even thinking, because I remember, now this is on a much lower level, that when I transferred from Portlaoise to Parnells, they won the Leinster Club the very first year I left, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I was heartbroken. Now I don't care. It's all the one. Did you win? I've won one. Did you win one or two? I say one instead of two. But that night I found really difficult. No one to be celebrating, and the next day on the Monday, when I got past the Sunday and the Monday, I wasn't too bad, but I found it really hard to deal with it at knowing they were celebrating it.
It was crazy, because I was teaching Little Angel Special School, and I went into work on Monday, and the rest of the staff, there's maybe 50 staff here, and you pass them the card, and they kind of look, they don't know what to say to you, but but I think that's, you just listen. life can be cruel, but to be honest with you, if that's the worst thing, and it's not the worst thing that's happened in my life, believe me, but you know, it's not that bad. Do you know what I mean? It's only football.
Yeah, I know that, but it must have been very awkward for you at that time when they're acting all awkward around you. You know what I mean? It's just natural for you to feel awkward.
That's the thing, and you're in the situation. You want to come out and say, listen, just get on with it. You know what I mean? But people, then, even if you do say it, people don't believe you. So the best thing to do is just keep your mouth shut and get on with it. You know, and get the head down.
Yeah. Well, finally, just on this point, was you were talking about sitting in your house, and your house happens to be across the road from the GAA club. And Eamon and Neil were bringing the Sam back to the club, and you're sitting inside the house eating Weetabix. And your wife starts pulling the curtains. Like again, you know, but again, Kevin, like I mean, you'd have no heart if that didn't hurt you a little bit to know that was going on outside.
And probably people won't believe me, but we're sitting there, and Sarah went, you know, I was there, I could see her moving and getting uncomfortable, and she saw me, and she went to pull the curtains, and I kind of got up to walk over, and she said, no, Kevin, just leave it. And I actually just stepped outside my house, and you see, you can look directly across the road, and what I did that night, well, is instead of getting angry, or instead of getting pitiful, or whatever, I just kind of said, right, this is happening, now, that's something bad, just go and try and create something good for yourself. And that's exactly, honestly, what I did that night. And I closed the door, and that was life after that, you know.
Right. Okay. So you threw yourself into businesses, and you've got a good few different businesses on the go now. So, like, I mean, I suppose if you look at your life now, if that kick-started the positive changes, maybe you look back. That's how you look back on it. Maybe not as negatively as other people do.
Definitely, and I think like All Irelands can do certain things to certain people, and to be honest with you, Willie, I was fond of the crack, and I would enjoy that All Ireland maybe a bit too much. You just never know these things. I'm a great believer in like what's for you won't go past you, and you have to make the most of life. And like I said, you know, if that's the worst thing that'll ever happen to you in life, it's not really that bad, is it?
Right. Okay. So you're definitely not at the point where you can joke. Eamon McGee can slag you about missing out on it.
I think maybe after the final we'd want to joke about that, but I can't really remember.
Quickly there, you managed Gweedore in 2014. I was reading. So, like, I mean, that was just before this crop of good young lads came along, was it?
Yeah, it was, and to be honest with you, we knew they were coming, and they were to look for a manager, and I just kind of had finished up playing serious football, if you like, with county and stuff. So I thought I could do a job, and you know, I put a good team of people around me that I trusted, and that they were good club people, and we brought Paddy Bradley in to do the coaching. But you know what, things just didn't fall our way. Like I spoke about, all those young lads were then on the county minors. They made it all the way to the All-Ireland final. So did the seniors. So you were down maybe 9 of your players all year. So listen, it was a fantastic experience, and you know, it probably put me off management for life. But that's just another experience.
Well, that's dealing with club players is a bloody nightmare, I suppose, if you want to do things right. I believe club managers need to just be relaxed and not come down hard on fellas, because at club level, I don't know if players react well to this kind of thing. You almost have to be a little bit more relaxed with everything. You know, discipline. When you actually have to crank it up is another thing. You know what I mean? You can't be banging the drum all year with these fellas.
No, and I think, like, especially if you're coming off maybe playing for the county for 10 or 12 years, and you have to put your body through so much, you have to give up so much, you have to sacrifice so much, it becomes second nature, and then you're expecting a club player to do what you did.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work like that, Willie. And like, I think the way it's working this year for us, our manager, Mervyn O'Donnell, you couldn't meet a more relaxed fella if you travelled the world. And I think that's what works, because like you say, he's not banging the drum, he's not roaring and shouting and demanding this and demanding that. So it does work.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely does. I read somewhere that you were saying his big thing is honesty within the group, and that's pretty much what kind of has you've been able to react to. It's just lads being upfront and honest, maybe about attendances, effort at training, things like that. And was that not the case in the past?
No, I don't think it was, to be honest. And you know, I'll hold my hand up. I wasn't probably completely honest during different seasons, and I didn't train as hard as I could have, and I went to the States instead of coming into the club. Wee things like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This year it was all just about not winning, just about being honest and being able to look each other in the eye and say, listen, we gave it our best shot.
Yeah. So what should, like, I mean, you look pretty sharp in there at full forward. You played there at minor level. I was reading that in the piece there as well. And Like, I mean, it's obviously time commitment. You look sharp enough for club football. I don't know if you've announced this is your last year. You said that last year, but like, I mean, you have yourself in good shape.
Yeah, and just it's probably all down to our coach and trainer Michael Boyle, because we started back last January, and you're just specific programs, and training's enjoyable, and it's not overly tough at certain times. We did put in the hard work, but it just keeps you sharp and keeps you focused. And I don't think I've missed any training session this year, not out of being great or any of this kind of stuff. It's just that you want to be there. Do you know what I mean? Even when the rain's lashing, you want to go down because the sessions are enjoyable. I think that's why.
Yeah, no, exactly. So you have Scottstown next anyways in 2 weeks. So that's another, like, I mean, they've got the same sprinkle of big names, but a good solid club team. You wouldn't want to be giving away any 45s or blocking balls out for 45s against them anyway.
No, listen, and this is not me talking Scottstown up or anything, but like, if people are being honest, Scottstown have been the favourites for Ulster since before the ball was thrown in. We actually had them up here, the Scottstown lads up in our pub here, for a stag do, but maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and they had their eyes firmly fixed in Ulster at that stage, even chatting to them, and that's before they won their own county title. So
right.
They know what they're about, and we're way off that pace yet. But listen, it's on the day, and we've a massive 2 weeks to put in now.
Yes, that's a good one, that you're listening to this at the bar, and little did you all know that you'd be playing each other later on that year.
Yeah, do you know what? Darren Hughes was there, and I was on the crack with him, and I said, "Listen, these are doing well." And listen, they were extremely lucky in also those last couple of years, and
yeah.
He was explaining to me that their target is to put those scores to bed. So little did we know we'd be crossing paths in a few months to a few weeks' time.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, I have to wish you best of luck, because you've promised me a live Skype call from your pub if you win it on the Monday. So like, all GAA listeners can look forward to that. We might get yourself and Eamon and Neil there together, and maybe do a therapy session with the three of you.
That's a promise. If that happens, you're more than welcome to ring us.
Well, listen, all the GAA listeners will be on Gweedore's side then in the Ulster final. Listen, come here, best of luck, and thanks for taking the call.
Cheers, bye bye now, bye bye.
Alright, so the winner performance of the weekend this weekend has to be Brian Carroll, who scored 216 in total, including equalising goals at the end of normal time and at the end of extra time as well. He joins us on the line now. Brian, how do you make sense of that game? We hear it was an absolute classic.
Yeah, very hard now to smart and Wooly to try and make sense of that. It was a fantastic game, to be fair, and Ballyboden and obviously my own teammates, like, we just went toe to toe for such long periods of the game, and it looked like we were dead and buried loads of times, and they got off to a flyer at the start, 2-1 to no score after a minute, and we showed great perseverance and great heart and bottle, and just kept soaking up everything they threw at us, and we almost thought we had them pipped in normal time. Well, to be fair, it's the only time we led in the whole game, but we thought we had it, but the referee found an extra 3 minutes out of somewhere that we didn't know where he got them out, so we felt a little bit aggrieved at that stage. But look, we had to soak it up then and go back in and go back out for extra time again, and again they looked like they had us beaten, but we got a goal out somewhere and went into extra time, so it just became a little bit crazy then at that stage, and a lot of tired bodies and tired minds, and it just kind of descended into a bit of a farce. But in fairness to Ballyboden, you have to hold your hand up on the day. They got the most scores, and I always say that whoever scores the most and is winning at the end of a final whistle, sure, they're the best team at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about this 6 minutes then, right? So so you get the goal then to equalise, and then you score another point and you go 1 up, and this would have been a smash and grab because you'd never led, like you just said. Like, I mean, you went 2-1 to no score down, then you went 3-8 to 10 points down, and you kept in it and kept kept coming back, and then went ahead. And the referee told you 3 minutes, because I was reading that no announcement was made in the ground, which is very, very unusual, and then he played 6.
Yeah, he made no announcement, but he made an indication to the linesman, because I was very close to when he did it, and he indicated 3 minutes.
Right.
Our wing back clarified it with him, and he said it was 3 minutes. And yeah, somehow we found 6, being honest.
And was there injuries? Like, I mean, try and look at it objectively, because, like, was there...
No, of course, no, I don't, and that's one thing, I don't want to sound like a sour grape. You know, it's far from it. As I said, I believe at the end of the day, Ballyboden were the best team that scored the most. So, you know, there's no sour grapes there. But it's just, you know, I suppose the big question, and as you said, objectively, you know, how have we not gone at this stage to hooter, you know, similar to ladies football or to other sports, you know, and take this away from the referees? There's so much going on, and it's very clear then, you know, that we're playing to the clock, you know. So, you know, in a bigger scheme, I think it really has to be looked at. And yesterday, it's certainly a case where we saw that firsthand.
Yeah, because it is
you know,
human.
You said, you know,
go on.
Yeah, it is human nature. Yeah. Of course, but yeah, sorry, you said that was a smash and grab. It certainly was. But, you know, even though we were 4 points down at half time, you know, I told the boys at half time, I told them we'd score 3 goals, and I actually said it could take us to the 63rd minute to get the 3rd goal, and it actually worked out exactly as I spoke at half time.
Really?
So we really believe, and I mean that, we really believed. I told them we would score 3 goals, and we just believed in ourselves that, yes, obviously they were, you know, on fire up front, Pascal in particular, obviously. But we just had that belief in ourselves that, you know, we play till the final whistle, and that's the way we approached it. So while from the outside it might look like a smash and grab, that's the way we approached that game. We knew that would go to the wire. That's what we firmly believed.
Right. And why did you pick the 3 goals? Just because Ballyboden had 3 goals at half time? You thought you needed to match them, you know, rather than try to outpoint them?
Yeah, so both, look, trying to think about that, they had scored 3, so my point was, look, we can score 3. It's not that we can score 1. Like, and I believed we had kind of carved a couple of opportunities in the first half, but you know, we just didn't get in. And I just felt that, you know, if we could run at them, that we might create these opportunities. So, you know, I suppose it's to have that belief in yourselves. You know, to just keep going. If we got 1, we could get another, and so on. You know. Right,
exactly. And you mentioned Colm Pascal there. Did he take you by surprise? Because, like, I mean, he only had been coming on as a sub. You know, we obviously know he's a footballer first and foremost. Like, I mean, were you expecting him to score 3-3? And I think he was fouled for the 3 points in injury time as well.
Yeah, look, in fairness to him, you know, he's obviously a wonderful athlete, and his speed was hugely damaging. Every time he got the ball, he just took off, and you know, our couple of cornerbacks wouldn't be slouches, Stephen Connolly and Stephen Burke, so he just seemed to be able to get away from them at ease. So his pace was huge, and it was a masterstroke from Ballyboden's perspective. You know, I believe that was his debut in terms of starting a game, so, you know, what a debut to have, because ultimately he was the difference, and you know, he was you know, he was lethal up front for them, to be fair.
Does it probably makes it even harder losing a game like that, Brian, knowing that Leinster's wide open this year. You know, let's be honest, like Coola are up with Na Piarsaigh, maybe a level above a lot of other clubs, but you know, when they were out, there was a great chance there. Yeah,
certainly, and you know, and Ballyboden won't fear Ballyhale now. While you know, Ballyhale obviously put up a huge score yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, they're obviously not the team they used to be, you know, in terms of losing the likes of Henry Shefflin, and, you know, like it's while he's manager, you know, he's a big loss, but then I suppose Colin Fennelly chips in with 4-4, that's no mean feat either, so
no.
You know, they've class too, and obviously TJ Reid is unbelievable, but yeah, I think that the All-Ireland Club Championship this year is a fantastic it's a fantastic competition, as it has been for the last couple of years, but you're right, like Coola and Na Piarsaigh almost super clubs. They're almost at that level. You know, that their numbers, the you know, the way they're producing the hurlers, and the squads that they're able to produce is phenomenal. You know, we could probably see it yesterday even with Ballyboden. You know, we pulled in 4 guys, but we were bringing them on and bringing them back off again. You know, whereas they obviously would have a lot bigger panel and options than we would have. So we're drawn on a very small rural area here in Coolderry, 800 people. Almost everyone can pick up a hurl, picks up a hurl. You know, we've 3 adult teams, and we're very proud of that. We don't play the big balls, Willie. We played a bit of Junior C back in the day, and we don't have much time for it over here. So it's all about hurling, and you know, we enjoy it. And look, I suppose looking back at it yesterday, look, I'd be very proud of what we did. You know, we showed great heart and determination, as I said, and we just never gave up. And I think everyone in Coolderry was actually at the game. There was a huge support there, and they really got behind us. And they were hugely disappointed at the end, but they were hugely proud of us as well. So, I have to acknowledge that too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you mentioned that you're only a small little area. Like, you've 31 county titles. So, like, I mean, you're way out on your own with regards to the Offaly Roll of Honour. Burr are next on 21, and most people would think of Burr, especially around my age, considering how much Burr won at national level, that they would be the big club in Offaly. But for you now, obviously you ignore the big ball, which I won't hold against you. But, like, I mean, for a small area like that to be leading Offaly club hurling, well, is an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah, and it is our tradition. We won we pride ourselves in this. We won a title in every decade bar the 90s. So the poor old 90s guys, we don't let them get away with that too quietly. But
and that's when Offaly hurling was at its best.
Yeah, and you see, obviously that's when you had the likes of Burr, as you mentioned, like they were a phenomenal team, and you had Clarine and St. Rhinus. There was three great teams back then, all vying for championships. But that Burr team, as you mentioned, like they won 4 Irons. It's phenomenal. 7 Leinsters what they did. Obviously the likes of Brian Whelan and the Pilkingtons and the Hanafis as well. So like they were a savage team. But obviously Coolderry, we have a huge tradition. We don't win a lot underage. It's all about building for the senior team, and we have that belief and that tradition in ourselves that we can keep going. And we're out on top of in terms of rural clubs, we're number 1 in Ireland, and I think we're gone giant 4th in terms of the Roll of Honour, in terms of county titles. So that's something to be very proud of.
Right. That's interesting. Sorry to cut you off. That's interesting what you said, that you don't win much underage and that it's building towards the senior team. How do you mean? Like, how do you mean by that?
Well, it's just surely we don't have the numbers.
Right. Okay.
So we always compete. We always compete where we can at A grade. So we very rarely knock on the door of winning championships. We don't tend to amalgamate with anyone. So even up to under 21, we'd be struggling because of numbers again. And a lot of teams are joining up, but we continue to stay on our own wherever possible. So we continue to allow our boys to learn probably perseverance as much as anything else. And I think it stands them in good stead when they get to around the age of 18, when physical strength. Obviously it's important, but everyone's kind of caught up in each other at that stage.
Yeah.
And they've learned the hard way how to keep going in matches. And when you are looking for them to perform on big days, when you get to county knockout games, quarter-final, semi-final, final, that these boys are used to it, and they're used to putting their shoulder to the wheel. And I suppose that's where performances like yesterday come out, that we just learn from a very young age that you just have to keep going.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, with Coolderry, because of your brilliant tradition, they don't necessarily need to have won anything, because once they get up to senior, they'll get that natural confidence from Coolderry's tradition, and being used to winning, and that can be bred into him.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And we as a group of players are very conscious, because there's a group of players around my age, around 35, 36, and we're very conscious of that and passing on the mantle and allowing those guys from maybe 17 to 20, 21, that they understand the level that they need to get to. And I see this something similar really going on with your own club in Port Leith, because I'm good mates with Paul Catalan, and I see close similarities, and I talk to Paul very a lot in terms of that, and the importance of passing on the mantle, and the importance of those younger guys understanding what that level is. And that it takes time, and it takes, I've used that word a few times, it takes perseverance, not just to win things, but just to even make the team at times, that you have to keep knocking on the door, and eventually when you do get your place on the team, that you're there to stay there. You're not there just to come on the odd day or that, so when you do earn that jersey, that's, you're capable of playing in the big games.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's interesting. Come here, you weren't fancy to win Offaly this year. Was I reading that correctly?
Yeah, we were favourites for relegation.
Go away.
I suppose they looked at our age profile. We won the county final in 2015, and probably everyone would have seen that was our last kind of hurrah.
Right.
And I suppose we've been just tipping along the last couple of years, beating in the quarter-finals the last 2 years, and I suppose everyone just from the outside said, right, okay, these boys are getting even older. They're not kind of going anywhere. So we changed up a bit. We brought in Joachim. Joachim's a hugely Joachim Kelly, awfully stalwart in the 80s. He even played into the 90s. And Joachim's his own man, a very, very Nice guy, very confident sort of man, but old school, completely old school. It wouldn't be for everybody. Lets us go about hurling very, very simply, and he kind of suits our style in Coolderry. As he said himself, he wasn't coming in to change it up over a labyrinth on tactics or anything like that. Very much from the mould of Brian Cody, and it's about enabling the players to be the best they can and figuring out situations on the field themselves. And so he enabled as best as possible the hurling side of things. And then he brought in, first time ever, he brought in a strength and conditioning coach, and a guy called Martin Bennett, and he was absolutely excellent. I've trained under a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, but this guy, he was top class, and I have to say he's the best I've ever trained under, because he understands the demands of hurling, as opposed to strength and conditioning. So,
right.
I found that hugely debeneficial, and a guy that's always willing to learn and improve things. And he's an army background, but he brought in the mental side of things, that determination and steeliness, but not. We won't say, he was often trained under army guys, and it can be a little bit OTT, but no, this guy was very astute. So I must tip my cap to both guys that are over us, and obviously our management team in general.
Yeah, because he's had a great impact on you anyways, whatever he's been doing. Do you know, like, I mean, like 2-16 is incredible stuff. I think it was 1-5 against Mount Leinster Rangers, and then in the county final you were up there for man of the match as well. So, like, I mean, you're at 35. It doesn't look like you're slowing down anytime soon, and maybe that's what you needed at 35, was a bit of strength and conditioning, something new, maybe to give you that little bit of a spark.
Yeah, and actually we do a lot of boxing, giving away all my secrets now, but I know it's no problem saying that. We do a lot of boxing, which actually saves our legs, which is important. Obviously we do running, and there's a time for it, but it's always been quality over quantity. And the boxing obviously brings a huge anaerobic demand, and it really suited us as a group of players. And I think it lends itself very closely to those tackling situations you'll get in hurling in particular, where it's stop start nature, and so I think it really suited us, and we've been continuing that all year. So I think that particular thing has been a big part in allowing us to perform. And you see Kevin Brady as well. He's another guy at 35, and he rolled back the years in the county final too. So so. Yeah, it suited us. It certainly did. And
isn't just thinking on my feet here, because I've never hurled, as I'm reminded of a lot on this show. Would the boxing keep your shoulders nice and loose, which might benefit the hurling as well? Maybe, no?
Yeah, definitely. But it's a little bit of you get strength in your shoulders and in your arms without having to overdo the weights.
Right.
Sometimes I've found down through the years with weights at inter-county level in particular, it's lending itself to rugby almost, and you do need to, as you say, stay a little bit looser for hurling. And I do think it's shifted a little bit. I think people are starting to see it's more important to have lean muscle mass as opposed to bulk at this stage. You see the inter-county players now, at both hurling and football, it's got a lot leaner, so that is important. But there's a fine line between doing weights and overdoing it, I think.
Yeah, no, exactly, it is. I think it's the big biceps for the beach weights and stuff like that, they're definitely gone. So maybe you see the odd fella still persisting with them, but it's not for football or hurling. He's probably doing it for. Come here, before I let you go, Brian. What about the sending off? Because you said earlier that the game turned into a bit of a farce, and 3 of you were sent off, and one Ballyboden player was sent off. How did you get sent off? It was in around a penalty decision, was it?
Just before that, yeah. Look, I think these things happen. Myself and Colm Keeney kind of clashed, and then another guy came in, and I kind of pushed the guy off me kind of aggressively into the ribs, and Keeney got a yellow and I got a red, and yeah, strange decision, that's what I would say. Strange that I received a red and he received the yellow. So that's all we'll say, really, I suppose.
Right.
I definitely kind of looked at it a little bit strange. I thought, look, 2 yellows, more than enough, being honest. I couldn't understand that decision, being honest.
Right, okay.
Again, I don't want to sound like it's sour grapes, but it's just, I was perplexed at the need for a red, being honest. But what, yourself, it's a tough game. There's if it merited a red, trust me, you would have done a lot worse.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
thought you were going to get sent off, put it that way.
Okay, right. So that's when the game descended into a farce a little bit with all the sendings off, and that's a pity, really, because like I mean, from
It was a
everybody you
pity,
speak to,
you
it's
know.
just one of the all-time great games. This was.
Yeah, it was. It was an epic, being honest. You know, sure, look at the scoring, like, you know, 528 to 525. You know, I just thought about it afterwards. Like, we scored 40 points.
And lost.
Like, and we still lost. You know, crazy stuff.
You got 22.
crazy stuff.
You got 22 of them, and weren't on the winning team, which is just bizarre stuff.
Yeah, just one of those days. It just everything seemed to click, and nearly got a goal just before I went off as well. I went down with cramp. I got a bat and the ball, and it just went across the face of the goal, and it just went out by the post. And it would have been a sweet one to get it in, but yeah, unfortunately, look, we just ended up on the wrong side, and I said it from the outside. And I mean this: whoever scores the most deserves to win, and they obviously scored more than us over the. What will we hurl in the end? Nearly 100 minutes.
Yeah, not far off.
Crazy stuff for an amateur game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, you might not have won, but you did Coolderry no harm their reputation anyway, so you kept that going. And come here, Brian, thanks very much for taking the call.
No worries, Oli. Thanks a million.
All right, great stuff from Brian there after a brilliant game in Parnell Park yesterday. Right, that's all we've time for today. We'll be back on Thursday. As usual, I won't be here. Conan's going to hold the fort because I'm going to have a baby tomorrow. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Good luck.